Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy Thursday as we celebrate this Veterans Day week. It was time to do a week. And so it's been really fun to have amazing interviews and talk to incredible veterans. But this one is extra, extra, extra special to me. As you can see, the last names being the same on the screen there. You get to meet my dad, Tom Scruggs. He is an Air Force veteran and is the reason that instilled red, white, and blue into me. Why I grew up singing the national anthem for a living is because of my dear dad and my mom, of course, who's there behind the scenes, but we'll just wave to her. But Dad, it is such a privilege to get to introduce you here to our virtual world and to have people hear about your background and your time in the Air Force and who you are. And it's an honor to do this with you. And I'm going to try not to cry. That's my goal. I'm going to not cry. I'm going to stay tough. So welcome, Tom Scruggs. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
This is really fun. So Tom is in Upland, California. With COVID and the pandemic, we haven't been able to see each other as much because they're staying safe and healthy and well, and I'm so glad. So getting to see him on the screen is really important. But we're going to dive right in, Dad. You were in the Air Force. I want everybody to know that. Will you talk about what years and why you went into the Air Force and what years you served?
Okay. I entered the Air Force on October the 10th of 1961. I had been married for a year and 2 years at that time. And I joined the Air Force because I was married. I didn't want to have to go in the Army because I knew I wouldn't be able to have my wife with me if it was possible. So I made the choice to join the Air Force, which was a good choice. Then I was, after I took my physical and everything, because I got my notice and I knew that I would be called in. So I went and came home, talked to Mom, and joined the Air Force as my call. And I entered it on October 10th of 1961 at that point. And then they sent me to San Antonio, Texas, where I took my basic training, my 8-week basic training in San Antonio, Texas.
And how old were you at this point, Dad? How old were you when you did that?
How
old were you?
I was 23 years old at that time. And, it was kind of a stretch for me because when I was in high school, I took ROTC for 3 years. And I was planning on going into wanted to go to college and take the Army ROTC and then make a career in the military. But things changed when I met your mother, and that's when we got married in January of 1960, and then we, for a year and almost 2 years, we were together until I had to go into the service.
So you went through basic in San Antonio, and then they sent you to a tropical island, right? Is that where?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the fun part because they send you in a group, sit you down in a group, and then they start calling your name and tell you where you're going. And when they got to me, they said Scruggs, Plattsburgh, New York. And I
want everybody to understand that our whole family, born and raised in Southern California, we are not snowbirds. Okay, please continue.
That's exactly right. And that's where I started shaking. Plattsburgh, New York. I've never heard of it. I didn't know anything about New York because I'd never been there. I hadn't been out of California. And so, well, you go where you're told you're going to go. And the funny part about is that when I got my orders, I had to go ask, and they gave you a plane ticket from Lackland Air Force Base to your destination. And I wanted to come home and get my wife and bring her with me. And so I had to go get permission to do that because, I'm in the Air Force.
Right.
Well, they weren't going to give me permission. They said, no, I couldn't do that. I had to go straight to the to the base in Plattsburgh. So I said, well, fine, let me talk to somebody else. And I went through the channels and it never, nothing ever worked. So um, I'm going to tell on myself because
Right.
what I did is I went to the airport, changed tickets, and flew home to California, got my wife, and then drove back to Plattsburgh.
Tell
Where
everybody what you drove to Plattsburgh in, because I just love this part. What were you driving?
oh, my most favorite car in the world, I always loved the 1958 Chevy Impala.
Oh, I wish you still had that, Dad.
I uh, I love that car, and we used it. We had it. I'd only had it about a year, I think, or so, when when I got called. So we used it to drive back to Plattsburgh. We packed what we could in the car, and off we went.
So
And
you got to Plattsburgh and they set you up in the luxury accommodations,
of course,
of course, and and you got your job started. We'll talk about your accommodations in a minute, but I want to dive into what you did there in Plattsburgh and how you grew and what ended up happening, for you, for your career, for the long haul, but what you did on the base.
okay, you want me to go straight to
Yeah,
that now?
yeah.
Okay, well, they got what they called me an administrative specialist, which is a clerk. And I had to learn to type, which I never had. But so what I did is the school that they were going to send me for typing was full, and I was going to have to wait 2 or 3 months to get a typing class, which would slow me down for promotions on that. So I asked the colonel that I was working for if I could take a typewriter home every night, and I'd bring it back. And I said, because I have a wife that can teach me how to type. And they said, okay, you can do that. So every night I hauled a typewriter out into the car there and bought the typing learning books. And we'd sit at the kitchen table and she would teach me how to type. And that's how I learned to type.
I
And
love
then,
that about you, Dad. We don't know how to do something, you figure it out. You've taught
right,
me that. You just
right.
find a
So
way and figure it out.
all I had to do then is after I was skilled enough is I had to take a test on a typewriter and do so many with 35 words a minute or something like that. And so I did and passed, and then that kept me going. So I worked in a office with a sergeant, and my main boss was a colonel, and I was his, uh, you might say, clerk along with it. I there because the sergeant that was there was leaving, so I was going to be it at that point. So that's what I was doing at that. I typed out all kinds.
Well, we lost your audio, Dad.
Are you there?
There you go. There you go. You're back. Okay, go ahead.
I lost, and so I did a lot of work in printing out and all of this kind of stuff for this particular office. Well, I was there for 2 years or something like that. And then I got a call from the base commander wanting to see me. We had the base had an alert. They had practice alerts all the time. So we failed it. And that's why I got the call to the base commander. The bomb nav section there failed, and I was asked to go over and straighten it out.
Wow.
And so I was sent to this office. There was two airmen that worked there that wound up in jail, or the brig they call it. And so I had to go in there and figure out what happened, why it, you know. And so I got in there and found out that the classified information was all shot and everything.
Oh
So
my
I
goodness.
I called base command, base security, had them come over, told them I wouldn't take any responsibility for it until did an audit, then I'd call. And that's what I did. So I did that, and then they came back, they approved it, and then from that point on, I was there. Now, I worked directly for a colonel who was in charge of the flight tower, so that when we had alerts, I had 5 drawers of classified safe information that I had to take care of and keep updated to a point,
And
because it
everybody
all had
remember, this was
different.
in the early 60s. It wasn't
That,
all computerized. Everybody realized this was the early 60s as he had to keep this classified data organized. Go ahead.
that's exactly right. And that was the problem, that it wasn't organized. And so I was responsible to the colonel, directly to him, because he was in charge of the flight tower. So when we had an alert, he went to the tower, and then I had to stand on, there, and then he would call me with whatever document he wanted from the safe, and then I would have to take it up to him there, and then I'd go back to my office. So that was the purpose of that. And I worked in a building with, oh gosh, I think it was eight officers and the colonel, and I was the only airman in the building.
Oh
So I'm
my
low
goodness.
man on the totem pole.
But you made it work, and you made so many changes for them there. And it was your skills and your willingness to find a way, figure out how to do it, and make it more organized. For the viewers watching, my dad is extremely detailed and organized and can do 20 things at one time. And I know that what you took of what you thought was your disabilities became your abilities, and what ended up being your best skills, and why you were such an incredible part of why that base ran so smoothly for those 4 years. And I'm
That
so proud of the work that you did. And I know you know it, but I don't think you really realize how powerful that was at that time.
Well, that's true, because I was just doing a job, and, I was reporting to the colonel, but the colonel was very nice and very with me, and we had a good there, and I had a good relationship with all the officers, because we used to debrief and brief the pilots and the navigators
Wow.
before they take off, and that's what the purpose of that building was. So I was in there for a couple of years, I guess. I worked there, doing controlling all that, and I was in charge, because I was by myself, of cleaning that and taking care of whatever had to be taken care of.
Right.
After that, about 2 years after that, then I got, no, wait, all right, go ahead.
No, it's so, and what I love about this is because, so many people think about just being in the service, meaning you were on the front lines or you served in one
No,
of the wars. And what you did was so critical, because you were in the service from 61 to 65. And for those of you watching, he got out right before he would have been sent to Vietnam. He just missed that. And
exactly.
he was in charge of classified documents and the infrastructure of this base, that this is how this was done then. And it was an incredibly important job. And there's so many jobs in the military that our veterans have done and do to this day that we don't think of as so incredibly important, which is why people can choose any field they want to when they enlist and go into the service. And my dad is a clear example of that. His organization skills were critical. Dad, when you were there, were you like you were doing work like you were in an executive office?
Yeah,
Did the military pay you as a top executive? What was your pay when you were in the Air Force in 1961?
They were very generous, because when I went in the service, and after I got to Plattsburgh, my 2 week pay was $35 every 2 weeks.
Oh my! Every 2 weeks, $35.
Every 2 weeks, yeah. And then of course, as I made stripes, then I made more. So at the peak of my earning was $75 every 2 weeks, plus a housing allowance, which didn't pay for the rent that we're doing, because because I was married, we lived off a base.
Right. Well, and I want everybody watching to realize that from this, and when you came back out, your family, your mom and dad and your brothers had just started building a new company in aerospace. And so all these skills that you took from the military and your time of service, when you went back home, you didn't go to Vietnam, you went back home and you had to help grow a family business. At the time
Yeah.
was negative. This was not a flourishing business yet. This was in the negative. And you and your siblings and your mom and your dad passed away, you know, years and years ago, but you guys built this to be one of the largest aerospace companies in the nation. And I'm proud to share what you guys built and did. I would love you to share, Dad, what you learned in the service and that job that you had in the service that then went into your career and in the business that you ran for 40 years.
Well, of course, the first thing was typing. That that was a key to where, because I worked what they called in production control
Mhm.
in the business, and I took care of all of the paperwork and all that, and made out the job travelers for the shop and all this kind of stuff. So I did it all on the typewriter, and so I went there and I controlled all of the different manuals and stuff, and I made out the shippers that shipped the parts to the customer, and I had all the files on all that stuff. So I was completely engaged in that particular phase of the business. So I was what they call, my title was production control manager is what my title was.
Right.
The title didn't mean much, but it
No.
was there. So that's where I did, and I put 40 years in that place.
Yes, you did.
That the things that I did to as the company built up, you know. So
And how do you see that time in the military really helped you even more to do what you did for 40 years?
okay, well, first of all, like I said, it was typing, but then it taught me organization,
Mm.
uh, how to deal with paperwork, which I had never done, and to be very thorough in what I was doing, so that everything came out like it was supposed to, because it was a new industry to
Right,
me.
right.
Uh, and dealing with all of the major aircraft companies, they required certain things that had to be done in the paperwork world to do that. And that was all part of me.
And what I want everyone to realize is when we talk about time frame today, you know, the computer does everything for us. We're so spoiled with the phones in our hand, and I can have all of my documents upload in an instant. But at this time, you had to hand type paper. You had to pick up and make a phone call. There wasn't even fax machines yet. Everything he had to do had to be actual paper with
Well,
his hands and taken care of and filed and handled and administered correctly. And we're so spoiled with the systems we have now.
yeah,
But you were literally your own Google Chrome at the time. You were your own system that you
yeah,
had to create to survive these transitions and to do the type of work that you did.
yeah. We had a lot of manuals that had to be kept up and all of that. And I had to use to type out mimeographs and then take them to the print shop, have them printed out, and then put them together when I got them back. So that was part of the thing of my ability there. Taught me how to, organize what I
Right.
had to do and all this kind of stuff as I went through. So I spent all 4 years doing that, until I got out of the service. So it was all helpful when I got back into the business.
Well, and you taught me those skills, Dad. Pen and paper. To this day, I've got 5 notebooks here on my desk. I'm still huge on pen and paper. I still keep a 6-column ledger with my bookkeeping because there's something about the pen and paper, writing it down, that allows our minds to retain that information and sets us up for success. And you taught me all of these skills, and the reasons that I can, run my business, do the things that I do is because of the skills that you taught me that started from your time in the service and then running the family business. And I'm so grateful. I will have these skills for my lifetime, and I will be able to pass those on to my children. And also, as a coach, to anybody that I teach and coach and lead, is these organizational skills that are the game changer in what I can accomplish. And you
Well,
did that for me, Dad. Thank you.
Well, the funny part about that is that I'm still in that world because I don't use computers.
I know.
I don't like computers, so I do everything
He's
pencil.
82 years old, everyone. Not to give your age away there, Dad, because I'm only
Oh,
25, but he's 82. And yes, he still can track and run all his own paperwork and his own documents.
that's exactly right. I'm just as happy doing that as I would. I know it would be easier if I do it on the computer, but I'm not interested in it.
My
So,
last question for you, Dad, is when you look back at your 4 years in the Air Force from 61 to 65, what are you the most proud of, or what do you remember the most as your happiest memory?
well, uh, it was a good 4 years. Uh, we got uh, my wife and I found a church, a little church there in that town, and we got involved in that, which was a real blessing in itself. But the things that they taught me in there was something else too. And I just the 4 years they may have went slow to a bit, but then it went fast when I got out. So it was a learning curve that I would have got nowhere else. Why there, I was a little leery about getting in the service because it interrupted our marriage, but it turned out to be a very good thing.
Well, I spend my career saying thank you to veterans, as you know. But it is such an honor to say thank you to my dad. Thank you for your service on this Veterans Day week, to be able to look at my dad on this amazing virtual world we have now and say thank you, Dad, for your service. Thank you for being a veteran and serving everyone, and for the career that you've had. Just truly a blessing, and how it changed, the life and the path that I've been able to have because of it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for being my daughter, which is a special, and what you have accomplished. I can't say enough how much that I'm amazed by your talents and your skills and everything else.
Well,
It's
I
a
love you. Thank you
I
so
love
much. I'm glad I got to share you. I got to share
Yeah.
with the world today. It's fantastic. All right, you're going to get some rest today and have a fabulous day with Mom, okay?
Okay. Thank you for talk to you later. Bye bye.